Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 7th and tonight's movie is Inner Demons. Well, it looks like probability caught up with us. This is a found footage movie. I saw the trailer and this movie seems to be like The Last Exorcism in a way, except in this one it's like it starts out as a reality show, sort of like My Strange Addictions or True Life, and it's about a young woman who is going through drug addiction. And it starts out just being that, but eventually apparently it becomes clear that she is drug addicted, but there's also the bigger problem of her getting possessed. By the way, why is it always women getting possessed by demons in movies? I mean, there was The Exorcist, The Last Exorcism, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. They're all like young women. Well, how come it's never a guy? I guess this movie will be interesting in the fact that I've never seen a drug addiction be combined with a demonic possession before in a movie like this. Maybe it's like the Marble Hornets in that the drugs are the only thing that are keeping the demon at bay. When she goes to rehab, it really comes out. But as always, I won't know until I watch the movie, so I'll do that. Oh boy, this film. I'm giving Inner Demons a 4 out of 10. And it's hard, because I wanted to like this movie. I will fully admit, the first half of this is great. But then the second half happened, and I actually don't know how much I'm going to be able to criticize this movie without going into spoilers. I think a way to sum it up would be an over-reliance on cliches, but it's not even just one cliche, it was like 3 or 4 different cliches that clashed against each other. The ending of this movie is a mess. It's like they had a really good setup, but they didn't know how to end it, so instead of picking one, they picked like 3. Although I will repeat, the first half of this movie is really good. Like, the setup is great, the acting across the board in this movie is very good, especially the main actress who plays Carson, the girl getting possessed. And quick side thing, it's kind of weird because I've never heard Carson be used for a female name. I've hardly ever even heard it used as a male name. But her, performance and, for the most part, the writing of her is done very well because I actually felt sorry for this character. This movie sort of did what The Last Exorcism did in the fact that it took, the idea of a reality show and showed that the people behind it don't really care about the people they're covering. They don't really care if they get better, they just want good TV. There are 3 members of the crew, I think. There was Jason, who was a young PA, and then there were 2 older people. I think their names were Diane and Tim. And the older man and woman, at the beginning, they just didn't care. They were, making jokes about it. They were, I think Diane said, I'll bet that I could make them cry in the first interview or something like that. And it's more stuff like that that indicates they don't really want to help. They just want good TV. I'm not saying that nobody in this movie cared about Carson. There were a bunch of people who were trying to help her, but they either had, ulterior motives or they, had different ideas about what was going on and they fought against each other. There were also some decent scares in this movie. There were a couple absolutely bottom-of-the-barrel, cheap shot jump scares in this movie. I think I feel confident telling you about one of them. One of the characters was talking on the phone in a car and it was a very tense moment. And then a volleyball hit the car window, and you hear kids say, sorry, and then walking away. There was no need for that. I have seen this sort of idea done before, but it's featured very prominently in this movie. Whenever Carson is, in demon mode, the camera starts, glitching. Probably the best scare in this movie was ruined by the trailer, so I don't feel bad in ruining it again here. It is, in the middle of the night where Carson is, looking at the mirror in her, rehab room. And then she, turns around and looks at the camera, and then there's, really quiet, and then she starts to walk away. But in the mirror, you see the image of her turn around and, turn into a demonic face screeching. It drives home the point that there were good people behind this movie, and they did have a good premise. They just didn't know how to fully close things out, or at least that's the impression I got from this movie. I kind of want to go into spoilers and talk about some of the things in this movie that just amazed me as to why they put it in. As I suspected, the heroin and the other drugs were keeping the demon. I don't know if it was fighting the demon off or just suppressing the evil urges within, but once she starts detoxing at the rehab center, there's nothing to block it and it keeps getting worse. And they set up this quasi little romance between the PA Jason, who seems to be the only one who truly cares about her, and Carson. And they sort of form an understanding with each other. He's the first one to actually believe her that she's getting possessed. But then when she goes on one of her really horrible episodes, he gets heroin and injects it into her to calm down the demon, and they find out immediately, and she gets kicked out of the rehab center. And what happened that night that made her freak out was something else. There was like a nurse that was from Cameroon. They were talking about like she believed that Carson was getting possessed, and there was like they did like a rich. She talked about like in the past when a woman was possessed, they like tied her to a tree, and then she tried to do that, and then she got fired because of course she would. And then, before we can even get to the climax, we have to talk about how she got possessed. I think I would have been perfectly content with not knowing how this happened, not knowing what exactly led to her getting possessed by a demon. I wouldn't have minded never even knowing the demon's name. I would be fine with leaving that up to the imagination. But what they did was so dumb and so cliched, it was comical, pretty much. Like, Carson went to a Catholic school, and she was, like, friends with, I assume, like, she was one of the popular girls, this blonde, and then, as a prank, this group of people from the school, they get her into, like, a pentagram they drew on the ground, and they had candles. Then they read out loud from a satanic tome saying that they want a demon to possess Carson. That is their idea of a prank. Who does that? This isn't even normal high school bully cliches. This is something else. So yeah, it works. She gets possessed, and then we get to the climax. It starts out with Jason trying to read aloud like an actual like exorcism. Apparently he couldn't get a priest because like they put you on a waiting list, and it's not even that they didn't believe him. He just said they put you on a waiting list. I don't understand what they were trying to do with that. But anyway, he tries to do the exorcism himself. It doesn't work. She like bats the paper out of his hands and like attacks everyone. And then there's just more things for her going around killing people. And then it ends with Jason like directly saying, "Carson, I know you're in there. Come back to me." And then he walks up and hugs her. And then she's just cured. Like, you could just drive away this demonic entity with the power of love. Not even love. They like met like a month ago. So you think that it's going to go that way, but then her dad, who sort of went missing for like a few minutes, he's an alcoholic and he started drinking again because Carson was, doing all this stuff. And he shoots her with a shotgun, doesn't even say anything, just enters the room, shoots her with a shotgun, and then kills himself. This happens in like 2 seconds. I actually don't know what would have been dumber, them doing that or them actually doubling down on them asking Carson to fight the demon a little bit harder and it just working. And by this point, there are only 2 people left in the room, Diane and Jason, and then Jason literally gets up, murders Diane, turns around, and it's revealed that he was possessed. So I don't understand why it was suddenly so easy, since it was apparently very easy to drive the demon out, and then the movie just ends. I can't even tell you what I expected from the ending of this movie, but I can tell you it was definitely not what I ended up getting. Basically, there are 3 different endings to an exorcism movie that I know of. The first one is where it works, they drive the demon out and everything turns out okay. That's kind of what happened in The Conjuring 2. There could be the one where it doesn't work and everyone just dies. Or there could be like the fake out ending, where you think that everything's okay because the demon is out of this person, but then it's revealed that the demon was actually just moved over and possessed somebody else. And this movie tried to do a little bit of all 3 of those. It was a mess, and it's disappointing because this movie had a good foundation. They had a lot of potential with this premise and like the people behind it, but I don't know what they were trying to do with the ending of this movie. If you want a good exorcism found footage movie, I would think either The Last Exorcism or The Taking of Deborah Logan. Those were both pretty good, but not this. I didn't like this one very much. All right, I'll see y'all tomorrow.